Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're back for the final series. Were you about to do the intro? Did I just
No, I was just like, I was looking for the camera over here. There's no camera over there, so I reminded myself it's that
Well,
camera.
now the camera's over there.
It's that camera.
Yeah, we could get camera looking at camera if we wanted to. Oh, Joshi's going to swap it up. Hi, camera. Hi, other camera, right there. Oh! No, now they get to see my desk setup.
And your messy bed.
And don't worry about that. We'll clean it up later. We're back for the... Oh, wait, what, Gabby?
I can pretend I have another one. Hi,
Nice.
other camera.
Hi, other camera.
I can
Take a lot
totally
of photos
switch
of
to this
cameras. It's
right now.
We should have, like, a challenge. Who can have the most camera angles?
not me. It's probably Gabby. It's probably Gabby. Let's be real. She has the most cameras.
Could be.
I
She's also
do
been
have
in
a lot
the
of
business longest, so makes sense. You know, you accumulate stuff, right, little tigers?
You need a camera, you need a mic, you need a headset. Come on down to Gabby's peripheral and setup.
Good at sales, too. All right, well, sell me on these next teams. How about that, little tigers? Because we got CLG Challengers up against TSM Challengers. The rivalry is old as time, as LCS likes to hype up.
As time, though they we did just do piece
an anti-hype
that it's that
segment.
it's like an
Yeah.
old and everyone's like, I don't even know if I feel it anymore. But for us that have been watching for a long time, we do enjoy the story between TSM and CLG. I think CLG Challengers, when you're looking just at the way that people talk about them, right? And the fact that copy is such like a focus in the middle, and how everyone has high expectations based on how they do in scrims and beyond, versus TSM, who are very riddled with a lot of experienced players. Very unique position for that team, but I want to see them face off.
Let's take a look at CLG Challengers a little bit closer because, as you've highlighted in the past, Joshi, they started incredibly strong early on in the split. I think I heard a Derby announcer also talk about that at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. He sounded pretty good. It's definitely a situation where CLG, you kind of should have expected them to start strong, right? They're returning with 4 members, and they only have 1 person new coming in over the course of the splits. And so, I mean, they've been looking pretty good, but despite how mediocre their stage performance has been in terms of like their record, where they're just above 500, they are supposedly scrim gods, right? They are beating everybody in scrims. They're beating CLG, excuse me, C9. They're beating Team Liquid. They're beating, I've heard that they are also doing very well against like FlyQuest and everybody.
Speaking of, they have a pretty rough end of their split schedule. So let's take a look at that. Again, we'll get the Joshi GFX up on our screen because it started with AoE yesterday. They split the games. Not the look that they were hoping for. They wanted to 2-0 that one. Now TSM Challenges is their next opponent. You mentioned teams like Cloud9. Cincinnati Fear up there in the standings are coming up.
Yeah, and also it is Team Liquid first, to be clear.
True.
So that will hopefully be a little bit easier coming in for CLG, but we're also expecting them to do quite well against AoE previously. And so it feels like CLG, like they've had, I mean, I don't want to say disappointing, but not living up to our expectations of how strong this team was expected to be, especially with how much that they have had. And as we start taking a look a little bit more at what they've actually been able to do on the Rift, it's been kind of fascinating to watch how, again, their top laner, Jenkins, has been this crucial player for a lot of their early victories.
Is now the time that we talk about Jenkins? Not what is CLG faith.
I definitely went and grabbed Jenkins clips, and which is why when the Jenkins clip started rolling, I was like, yeah, isn't this what I put in?
Yeah, you remember that at some point. Back when you had internet. Remember those days? He's got that dog in him, Gabby. Jenkins has been playing the Warwick in multiple games this split.
Yeah, I mean, Jenkins has just had some really exciting picks to definitely shake things up for the squad.
This play's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I know that Moose Hater is definitely a favored top laner as far as very much winning a lot of popularity contests, but cool still seeing Jenkins also being up there.
This was the clip that I was talking about. And I'm like, yeah, I remember putting this clip in. Yeah, I mean,
that's some good Cassante play.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jenkins running around, right? Not only is he one of the most oppressive laners to play against, as reported by a lot of his opponents, but he is also one of the most vocal members of the team. He actually does a lot for their setups going into objectives.
But I'm excited to hear Latigris' thoughts on some of these players, because obviously, casting LCS, these players have been in there before, and Haunter in particular against Jenkins. Haunter's having an incredible split. Like, this guy's actually bodying most top laners, kind of like Dokla was in spring of 2022, when then he made the jump back to LCS the following split. I feel like Hanser, his path is kind of going down a similar trajectory.
Yeah, didn't y'all do a top laner bracket? Didn't he win that?
Yep.
He won our internal top laner bracket.
Yes.
But not the...
Fan vote Sniper won.
Yeah.
But, and Hanser was out first round, actually, I think.
Yeah,
'Cause Bradley
I remember-
won that one.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that one was really unfortunate that they were up against each other in round 1, but that's just how the seeding ends up working out. Hanser has definitely been by far the most impressive member of TSM Challengers so far, and going now into Jenkins is going to be one of the tougher matchups for them to actually find their wins. TSM have definitely found victories off of just the fact that Hanser will sometimes just like win games off of the champion he selects to lane.
I think one of the key things there too is just because he can play multiple styles. So when you're looking at him being able to win some of these games is because some other top laners you might think, oh, they really, really like to play tank and really supportive or otherwise. But in this case, you never know what you can expect from this player.
And that makes it hard to draft against them, harder to come up with a win condition against them. So let's see what the teams they're facing up against are, so we can kind of get an idea of what those strategies could shape out to be.
They also have a
Joshi,
CLG.
Why? Yeah, you gotta differentiate. How did you look at this
on,
Joshi GFX production image and not
Joshi
think
GFX
I should add
productions
some
are
more
not
context?
known for being good.
Fair enough.
They're known for being great, and this is one of the reasons
all right,
why
fair enough.
they're great. You have CLG, Flip, and Egg.
Egg's my favorite one. Egg.
Yeah, it is Fly Fam that they are going to be playing up against next week, and so it's not the
Pretty calm schedule.
Yeah, it's not the most difficult thing for TSM, but it's a lot of teams that are somewhat similar to them or below them in terms of the actual standings thus far. So TSM we kind of expect to have a little bit better than their current standings, but probably not so much better that we start talking about them as a top team. They've definitely had some of their struggles, and while we've talked a lot about their top side being very strong, their bottom side has been struggling.
And I do want to watch the continued development of Wild Turtle and Dragu for that specific reason, because with the switch ups and synergy in that bot lane is so important when looking at their overall success.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, Gabby. Wild Turtle has not been living up to a lot of the reputation that he has going for him, and that's one of the things that we are hoping will turn around from him as somebody who has been part of the competitive scene for so long. We know he knows what it takes to be good, but it hasn't been a team that has been set up for a whole lot of success. They don't have a coach, right? They've been playing almost entirely remotely.
In the league that does not have a coach.
Yeah, it has been very tough for this team to kind of come together, and so it's been very player-led, and for newer players like Doxa, who's coming from Collegiate, and Dragku, who's coming from the Oceanic League, it's a situation where it has been tougher for them to kind of adapt to this level of play.
So let's take a look at how they have been playing then and
Yes.
start talking about that. Gabby, you were highlighting flexibility in champ pool, in draft. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I have for this team too. They have multiple styles through which they look to win games.
And a lot of that comes from when you're looking at players like Hanser. The longer that you are around in a league, you tend to have more opportunities to continue stretching the way in which you play. So I do want to see what approach they take against CLG talent challengers today, especially if you're looking for them to pick things up a little bit in that bot lane.
Yeah, and one of the big things that we kind of look at, right, as you're talking about the different styles, is one of the big ones is you blow up the map via Hanser. He just kills everyone and runs over everything, and you get a lot of attention from Svenskeren to make that happen. The other way that they tend to do it is they buy enough time with Hanser and Svenskeren in order for Doxa to play some of these like mid-game, late-game scaling champions.
Played
like
a lot of Kassadin.
Yeah, the Akali, the Kassadin have been some of his biggest champions that they have had success on, and if the top side of the map is going so well that you can get that Kassadin online, Doxa starts to look really good.
And they're always looking for more. I feel like that's another kind of identifier for TSM Challengers is that they will set up for objectives. They'll do the standard play, but they'll also look for more after the play. And I love to highlight things like this. Like Hanser literally just 1v4ing here on a Scion while the team is a little far behind. But I think this is a team, you said that you don't expect them to really roar too much higher in the standings. I think they have a lot of space to still move up in the standings, especially given their record. They're currently in 11th, tied with Evil Geniuses at 9 and 13, but They got Immortals Challengers, they got FlyQuest Challengers, and even CLG Challengers ahead of them. I think all three of those teams, realistically, based on what we've seen on game days, I think TSM can actually take any of them.
The big thing is that we have started to see that separation rise at 2 games behind. A couple of those teams that you just mentioned is Immortals and FlyQuest, and I believe that we haven't looked at the updated standings from today, so I think it's 3 games behind Immortals now because they did go 1-1. So it is, TSM, like, it is a situation where they can look to improve, and again, it's not about getting these wins now, it's about improving over the course of the split, and hopefully we will be able to see a little bit more of that.
I do think that there's a big opportunity for TSM Challengers going up against CLG now, because if they get 2 wins here, that puts them 1 game behind CLG Challengers. So, again, standings, it just matters for seeding going into playoffs. All 16 teams are making it to playoffs, but that's what the weekend's. It's the derby. We're going around the bend.
We're going around the bend. We're going to see neck and neck, a whole length behind. There's a length in this case. I've always thought a length was like a series.
A length is this? Yeah, probably. Yeah. That makes sense. A lap is a weekend.
I don't know how horse races work well enough. Gabby, you're from Kentucky.
Yeah, well, how does
I lived there for 4 years. I just revealed to y'all earlier on that I have not ever been to Kentucky. I do have some horse experience in general, just not. I did a lot horseback riding when I was younger, and then I haven't for a while, but I've been wanting to. I can ride a horse bareback.
You were going from horse riding to esports? That's one hell of a journey.
I am a complex individual with lots of things. I used to kick things in Taekwondo. I used to do slam poetry. There's a lot.
You did slam poetry? Oh, we gotta do content for that now. We have to make something. Slam poetry. All right, but we did also, speaking of CLG Challengers, they are a team that has lived up to expectations in scrims, maybe not on game day, and we talked about this yesterday. We're going to talk about it again because we actually have heard from some players about how strong CLG Challengers are.
Who do you feel like are the strongest or the strongest team in NACL right now?
Coming into it, and I'll still stand by this, I think individual players and their peaks, I think CLG has the potential to be the best.
We've scrimmed CLG a lot, actually. Pretty good scrim partners. I think they actually have a good team, but I think they're very good.
Shows. Yeah. If you want to learn more, Raising a Name, every Tuesday, 8 p.m., twitch.tv/CubbyXX, 2 of them, not 3 of them.
That's why you put that clip in 2 days in a row, just so you could plug the podcast.
Yeah. Also, we need to figure out what I need to do for Perry in order to give him some followers. But
Perry, is that your player?
Yeah.
Well, the challenge is done.
I know.
You already lost.
You haven't given me a thing to tweet yet.
I haven't given you a thing to tweet yet. Gabby, did you hear about this?
No. Tell me, what is this?
Do it while we get into Champion Select.
Yeah. Champion Select is right. So let's hop into that, and then I'll give the lowdown. So Valentine's weekend, the weekend before Valentine's Day, we did a challenge where each of us got a player that we partnered with. We'll get Gabby on screen here in a second. She is still here, yeah. But we did players that we paired with, and we had to grow their Twitter following, see who could get the most Twitter followers for their player over the weekend. I won, which means that I get to tweet on Joshi's account.
Yeah. You haven't told me what to do. There was talks, because I was supposed to do it for Perry, and I said it a couple times on the broadcast, but I was like, I forgot. I didn't do a whole lot. So sorry about that, Perry. We're going to get you some followers anyway.
I'm the only one that made videos for my player.
You did a lot.
And then the next week, my Twitter got suspended due to suspicious activity. And honestly, maybe it's because I just kept tweeting about Masu. He had 129 followers, I think, when we started. So,
so you got him
maybe Twitter was like, why are you just constantly adding this person that you barely interact with?
Fair.
So now I'm Sir Buttkick. Yeah, thank you. You know what? It's not about me, Abby. I might have sacrificed my Twitter that I spent 6 years growing for the player Masu.
I see
so
the tear
that
dropping.
he could take the next jump in his career, which is very heroic of me to do.
I'm very proud of you.
It took a lot of bravery, but it's not about me. It's about the player. So let's talk about them, because we're in a pick and ban. Are we going to get Gabby back? I don't know if we're going to get La Tigers back here.
I don't know. As long as they can hear her. I think
La Tigers, I'm taking your job.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be, that voice that I feel like I have to talk funny because I'm not here on cam. I have to be, this surrounding voice.
Can you give me a 1940s radio operator voice?
Yeah, hello. hello, everybody.
Yeah.
It's 4:52 p.m. and the radio will only be on for 2 more hours because it was at a time where that's all you had. And then it
Copy.
all goes dark.
Copy, La Tigers. What do you think about Annie's first pick for TSM Challengers?
I've been a big fan of Annie since coming back in with some of them buff suckers because I really, really like seeing the stun and seeing what you can do to the enemy team and the flexibility between, mid lane and support.
Okay.
Offers a lot to TSM Challengers over here, I say, and having the Zeri locked in now for TSM as well, and Wild Turtle, we're looking to pick things up here, and maybe on a very reliable ADC can do that.
I'm sorry. I have to do it to you one more time because I still have it loaded into the soundboard.
Going between sleep and burst and...
All right.
You look like a DJ.
That was a bit from yesterday. I'm too powerful with the soundboard.
You're too powerful.
I need to go back and clip the Tigers doing that now so I can throw that in the soundboard too. Oh, we got her back!
Got it back. Welcome back. Anyway, we are halfway into the draft. We haven't talked about it barely at all. We do have the Annie, Zeri, and Gragas coming out for TSM Challengers, and it is going to be the Lovers duo plus a Monkey coming out for CLG Challengers. And with the Gragas already picked up, I'm a little bit surprised that CLG Challengers are actually still throwing bans towards the top side for TSM.
Yeah, interesting to note that. I do want to point out that we learned yesterday from Team Liquid first. You got to keep copying my hands. There we go. From Team Liquid first. Any support against Zyra Khan loses level 1.
That's true.
Do you think that Dragku learned that from the games yesterday also?
Probably. It's definitely a spot where we got to see Dragku having a fantastic opportunity of growth just across just across everything that we were seeing, just because they came in and they did not have a whole lot of success on things like the Caitlyn support, right? It was, as reported by...
I think about the things to do with my hands.
As reported by their opponents, it was one of the easier laning phases they had. But now that we're already into it, it was one of those things where Lost and Zeyzal are so aggressive earlier on that getting level 1 flashes buys them a lot of extra space.
I agree. Gabby, your thoughts?
The thoughts have been hard to form in my brain when I'm trying to follow your movement.
Well, now we're following your... Are you following our movement, following your movement?
Now you're following my movement.
Yep.
So I'm so happy because we have the 2 birds for CLGC and then another bird this time for TSM Challengers. And we really did see what was possible with the Zaya Rakan combination, as Joshi was just talking about the way C9 was able to execute because of the aggressive nature of Lost and of Zeyzal. So I really want to see what Meech and Breach can breezy.
Yeah.
Not Breach.
But Breach is a good name for both of them.
They really hate it, actually.
They do.
Yeah, I remember asking them about them, like what their duo name was, and we suggested Breach, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing better, though.
Breach is my favorite agent in Valorant, though. That would make me happy if I like the name.
I still think Meezy's... It's okay. Like, it works.
Mr. Easy.
Mareezy. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, Mr. Easy. There you go.
Now that's
that could work.
Akali locked in for the final pick of CLG Challengers. So kind of front to back team fight looking from them with an Akali that can do some cool things. But outside of that, I mean, pretty straightforward composition. A lot of engage options, actually, for CLG Challengers.
Yeah, but there's also, we have to know that the Gragas is going to be piloted by Svenskeren here. And so there's going to be a lot of focus here on Svenskeren and Dragku to get some of these big plays off the ground. And we have to remember that Doxa is oftentimes set up as somebody that's going to be scaling later on to the game. It's kind of a late game insurance alongside Turtle.
Fair enough. Well, join me one more time, both of you. That's it for Pick and Ban. We got TSM Challengers versus CLG Challengers for game number 1 of the day, the final series that we got. I'm going to get out of here because it's the casters. They're going to do the cast.
He turned me around.
Did I do it that time? Did it? Am I out
kind of. The game hasn't started yet.
Okay. I did it early.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. You did a good job. Anyway, he's gone now. We are A-okay. And as we start getting into this last game of the day, this has been one hell of a day, Gabby. Thank you for entertaining us throughout this whole thing.
I'm having a blast.
It's a supportive caster.
Yes,
we always
the
love having.
supportive caster coming on in. I always love I mean, who doesn't love watching League of Legends? If you're on the broadcast,
True.
obviously we love it, right? So just who can't, wow. But now clearly my words are starting to fumble a little bit. So anyways, articulation, saying words, that is a very important thing to be able to do. But I do appreciate y'all hanging out with me all day in these matches. We're getting into the last one of the day for this stream, TSM Challengers versus CLG Challengers. I want to see how TSM decide to play, because after all of the hype around Hanser and the like, Drac really up early though. Breezy and them going for the attempted throwback, but nothing just yet. A little bit of a flash taken away though from TSM support.
I mean, we saw that yesterday, right? Lost and Zazel were able to pick up the flash away from the opposing Annie. And it's one of the things where it is kind of a consequence of when you are starting with the E, as Annie supports often do, you don't have an ability. So you are just sitting there trying to auto-attack people back. And Meech and Breezy already getting this flash out from Dragu early on will allow them to be a big threat down here. Breezy is definitely one of the more aggressive supports that we have. And now looking for Dragu, who has no flash.
Well, this is what you can expect to see from Breezy, going directly for the Annie, ripped away. Support gets the kill credit, but overall a first blood for CLG.
Yeah, you do have to play so far back as the Annie early on in these games just to make sure that you do not come under attack like this from the Xayah Rakan. And so, as Meech and Breezy already find themselves with first blood, we will get to see how much more aggressive they actually can be in this lane. And Svenskeren, I mean, chilling out on the bottom side of the map, I don't even know if he'll be able to affect this or if it's going to be worth his time to come through.
Right now, making sure not to allocate too much time towards a lane where he doesn't know for sure if he's going to be able to make anything come of it. I know that, I think right there when you're looking at what CLG was able to do, and you did a great job of paralleling it to what we saw from Lost and Zazel last time. Hey, Xayah, Rakan, oh, we got the flash from Annie. Oh, that is a champion that really likes to try and outrange and get that lockdown with the threat of the stun up here. But nope, eliminating that for the early advantage opportunities. And CLG Challengers feeling good about at least what that can do to putting some breath into their lungs in this matchup.
Yeah, we'll see what else can happen today.
It rains
True.
in LA.
Thank you, Desrex. The other big thing that I kind of want to point out before we kind of lose it is Svenskeren did choose to take Electrocute on this Gragas, right? Going to be opting into a lot more early burst, a lot more opportunities to do some damage, and this is a big change, right? A lot of times when you see Gragas, especially up in the top lane, it'll go things like the Grasp of the Undying or a Phase Rush or sometimes a Comet in order to get that damage down in the poke department. But now Svenskeren, he's not doing the Phase Rush to keep himself safe. Instead, it's going to be Hanser potentially getting caught up on the top side.
You can see
It's out.
Heavy hanging around for CLG against Hotzer, who had to use the flash. So solo lane will be in a bit more of a vulnerable position because of that. And Kevy getting some resources off. We'll run into Svenskeren now. A bit of a battle for some vision.
Nice.
That's a clone. Zoning off.
Yeah. So Wrong Monkey is now Kevy is going to have to back up a little bit. He doesn't have enough priority in the mid lane because Gafi is taking quite a bit of damage going up against Doxa thus far. And one of the things that you oftentimes see from CLG is they play super aggressive in a lot of their scrims, trying to find a lot of early game plays, but not as much during the actual stage games.
Oh, continuing to see that aggression over on the bot side. The root on the blade
no
collar.
flash.
Oh, Hanser trying to go for the retreat. This is the punishment of getting that flash prior with the intervention of Kevy. Go ahead and charge up that Q. A little bit of a follow-up, and Jenkins kill up in the top side.
And that's their main win condition for Hanser, for TSM, is just making sure that Hanser is strong. He's going up against one of the most oppressive laning opponents, and Jenkins just yells at him in the back, takes him down, and as this wave comes in, yes, Hanser will pick up a lot of the farm, but it's a huge nullifying factor from what we've been seeing. And we're still fighting over these Raptors.
Yeah, TSM want to see if they can try and offset some of that pressure on the top side by continuing to rain it upon Kevy and the light. Kevy just a couple more shots from death, but the separation from Svenskeren and Doxa as he's zoning off copy and seeing that teleport come in from Jenkins means that TSM must disengage. But they are very aware of that teleport being utilized, so that is a tool that Jenkins won't have available.
That's still so funny. They fought over that for so long. Both junglers are, I mean, that's a whole like 2-3 camps that either of them could have done if they had gone somewhere else, but neither of them willing to do it. Kevy's still only level 3 with half of his opponent's camps done so far. And so CLG, despite the fact that the game is going mostly in their favor, you have to remember Jenkins has lost a lot of farm in order to pick up that first part, in order to pick up that solo kill up on the top side, and Hanser still going to be relatively strong going for the next part of the game because Jenkins has not done a good job of actually preventing Hanser from farming.
That is the thing sometimes when looking at it and you see, okay, cool, there's a kill, but you do have to look at the CS as well because of that equivalency of gold. So Hanser finding alternatives to make sure to stay in this gold matchup despite having that death now. And I think also pointing out what you said with Kevy being down in camps versus Finskaren, there's reasons that this gold has not really ticked in the favor of one or another despite there being a couple kills over for CLG.
Oh. Copy.
Trying to go for ultimates online. Copy. Too many blue bars around. Has to use the ultimate to escape, but still survives.
But that will be a whole wave lost right here to Copy. Oh, he's actually choosing to stick around with no ultimate. He knows Finskaren's in the area, and he sees that Breezy is walking up, trying to make sure that they at least get some of the experience. But Kevy, he's going to get spotted out here.
Yeah, Copy threw the ward down on one jungle side, and the new Kevy was on the opposite to match if TSM did want to go for a little bit of a wraparound. This Copy doesn't want to give up too much of this wave or control over this mid lane, and knows that Breezy is also here as well, starting to see some of these supports unlock from their lanes. That is one of the reasons that Annie has become a threat, because when you're standing in a bush somewhere, if you want to be able to assist your jungler, have that stun at the ready and really be that initiation lockdown for the team. Wild Turtle and Meech, though, because of the supports being unlocked, means that they're left in their lonesome over on the bot side. Been evened up in farm, and Wild Turtle just wanting to deny any from Meech that he possibly can, while Breezy makes that rotation through try.
It is worth noting that Wild Turtle, right, despite having some issues through the gameplay so far, has had a lot of really impressive defensive plays throughout the last couple of weeks, and just staying alive in times where they shouldn't, right? The lost play yesterday with the Xayah, I mean, Wild Turtle was playing Xayah before anybody else in this league had really picked it back up. And so Wild Turtle, I mean, still has these glimpses of brilliance, like the glimpses of the Turtle that was originally playing for TSM way back in the day when they were replacing, oh my gosh, what was the name? Chaos, right? When Wild Turtle first came in, it was just absolutely tearing everybody up. The same aggression still exists in this guy.
Yeah, I really do want to just hear more from Wild Turtle in general and how things are going. The last time, just making sure that a play over here in the mid lane. Copy, seeing what Dox is going for, has Breezy here, so Skaren also is over in the pit if necessary, and the Rift Herald now being focused over by CLG. But I do wonder just how Wild Turtle is doing on this team right now, how things are going for them, because, oh my gosh, all right, cool. So I was like, gonna go make this point, and then I'm just like, are you gonna go die? TSM picking up this dragon, though. But last I spoke to Wild Turtle was when he came over for semifinals for LCS last year, and it was while taking a break and came in for all that veterancy, and I want to know really how it has been coming back to competitive play. Facing off against teams like CLG here, who are willing to try to step up to contest, but they do manage to get the dragon in the end.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear what he actually has to say, right? Because it has been an interesting split for sure for Wild Turtle. But I also am kind of fascinated with the way that like Copy's been playing. Like Copy, this is the second time he's had to ult out, right? Copy is normally a player who plays a little bit better than this. It feels like the weirdness of the broadcast is not just us being a little bit unhinged on the day. It is kind of extending to the players as well. It's because, you know, there's a little bit of craziness that happens in Southern California whenever it does rain. But CLG, technically in the lead, but definitely not enough to actually find any advantages on that alone. And because the first dragon has gone over to TSM, and fairly late in the game at that, we're kind of back to the situation where I was a little bit hasty in saying that Hanser was going to be kind of out of it, right? He is now very clearly dominating this top side of the map, and Jenkins has really struggled to even just CS in this lane.
95 to 59 CS thus far over in the top side. And even when looking at, it's not just a late dragon here. We're approaching 11 minutes into the game, but look how healthy a lot of these plates are too. It's not like this has been super scrappy across. I think even though the supports have been making the rotations, Breezy and Dragu, it's a lot of ultimates that are used in that disengaged territory, mentioning that, yes, Copy has had to use it a couple times to be able to get out and often traded for the Emperor's Divide by Doxa. Nothing to quite really pick up the tempo.
Yeah. One thing that is good for Copy is this is a lane that can be a little bit tough for Akali, especially early on. But ever since the ultimate has come online, Copy has been able to threaten its use to keep Doxa playing a little bit further back. And this is something that Doxa has been really interesting for, right? As a win threat player, or for the longest time, as somebody who was playing in the collegiate scene, he was oftentimes well known for building up these, what we would always just call Doxa discs, where he just kills a ton of people. But now he has to be careful of Kevy, who's still waiting in the wings, not going to choose to go for the play. But now that we've actually seen him on the Challengers League stage, he hasn't necessarily been able to do that quite as often. The competition has been higher, and going up against Copy, even forcing Copy to use these ults defensively, is still better than I think we were expecting Doxa to do.
It definitely is something that you have to consider when taking away those resources from someone in the windows that it opens. And Doxa not here right now with Dragu and Sincere going through the jungle, but you do notice there's kind of stylistic differences in a league in the way it encourages players to play as well. And I think in the NACL, you have that mixture of LCS veterancy, some really up and coming, very, very new to the scene that are coming from amateur. And that mixture, you watch as players evolve when coming into different aspects of play. Because a lot of times they go, oh, I'm really scrappy and I'm doing all these crazy things. And then they come onto a team with veterans like the TSM squad, and they start to become a bit more slower in their approach and much more controlled, because that is usually very emphasized at the top levels of play.
Yeah, and it's definitely something where you hear a lot of, especially junglers, will talk about transitioning from semi-pro to Challengers League. See you first engage.
Looking for the kill on Scarin, but there's Nanny on the way as well, and Hanser getting the spin up and the leap down and the stun to follow. Burn good coming from the ignite. Kevy eliminated. Hanser with the kill credit. Featherstorm for Meech to try to answer, but instead it's the double over to TSM. Flash forward from Dragon, triple for Hanser. TSM, what a play with them now today.
And Hanser, we said that he's been having a fantastic split thus far, finding 3 kills off of that last play. Just catching Kevy and Breezy being a little bit too aggressive. They find everybody. They pick up Meech as well, and suddenly Hunter's not out of the game. He's the one in control. He's the one in control of who's actually going to be taking this game. He is an unmatchable split push threat as soon as he spends his gold.
That gold is ready to be spent. Lots of it. And at TSM, with the overall gold lead starting to pick up, Hanser can't back quite yet. His Copy's hanging around, recently using the teleport. But we've also seen the way that CLG have been moving Meech and Breezy across the map, going towards top for a bit, coming towards the middle to collapse. And I think they're definitely wanting to find their carry advantages in Copy and Meech and how they can set them up to be the biggest threats against TSM later on. Because Hanser, yes, going to be very scary. But if you find a chance where Hanser is separated, maybe the teleport isn't available, maybe splitting, then you can set up Meech or Copy to really try and just knock someone like Dox or a Wild Turtle out of there.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a game where, like, if you can beat up Hanser, great, but you have to commit a lot of crowd control to prevent him from leaving. And it might actually just be easier, as you kind of called out, to just kill everybody else, right? Doxa, I mean, does have this crown to try and keep themselves relatively healthy, but I mean, that's not difficult to play around in these long lanes, especially when it becomes an extended laning phase. And so I'm kind of looking at how well CLG will be able to actually make that happen, because so much of TSM's power is in one player. You can either kill them or you can just play everywhere they're not. And I feel like the second one might actually be easier. But TSM picking themselves up another dragon, and that's also going to be presenting them an alternate win condition.
Dragon starting to stack for TSM. Rift Herald acquired for CLG. Gonna get that back off now for the reset. But yeah, the gold lead that TSM were working for, and with a lot of that gold being in Hanser's pocket, it isn't an overall threat that they pose against CLG, which means that CLG can continue to farm up. They can do so safely. They've already taken down one of the turrets over on that top side, so they're not quite pushed in a way that will prevent them from getting to that late game strength. And TSM, on the other hand, seeing what they can do to continue to prop up Hanser for later on in effectiveness in the fight, and just getting these general objectives with the dragon stacking for themselves.
I'm trying to look for easy ways, right, for like Kevy and Copy to kind of be involved. But Copy is like, you know, it's been a little bit of an odd game coming in from Copy so far, with how they've been kind of dancing around Doxa. And Kevy, I mean, with how much time they spent fighting for Kevy's Raptors, and Spenskarian just went back and farmed his own jungle eventually, it's been very difficult for Kevy to kind of get involved in these games. And once the first play goes wrong, it becomes so much more difficult for them to actually create opportunities on the map. Now, looking to potentially help the split pusher.
And after quite some time away, Hanser now joining Jenkins once more on the top side, and even has a jungler and a support if needed. So want to try and match some of that turret pressure that CLG had previously gotten for themselves. Start breaking this open a bit for TSM.
Yeah. And, I mean, Hanser, once he gets unlocked and starts picking up these turrets on the side lane, it's going to be a whole lot of gold pushed their way. As the turrets do go down, it is worth noting that is not the first turret. The first one fell a long time ago up in the top lane, but CLG picking themselves up a second one, keeping the team gold close. But you have to remember, again, there's just one player that is so fed on TSM that everything is going to revolve around the decisions that they are making. It's a kind of a team fight composition plus a Jax. But when Jax is this far ahead, they kind of become a good team fighter by proxy anyway. And so we'll see what Hanser can really do. They are continuing to go up against Jenkins, who, yes, you can beat up, but it's going to take a lot of time to out-sustain him.
It's one of the reasons why Jax, though always a top laner that comes in here and there, but as of late, it is great to be able to have one you can get ahead in that way to diversify the way in which they can threaten. Is it just sending them? We see some that it's just about split pushing and getting that job done. Other times in those fights, like you're saying, just really being that formidable threat. When you're looking over at CLG and who they're looking to protect, Hanser will really have the opportunity to hop back on them, especially if Copy can't find the opening to get that execution on someone like Wild Turtle or Doxa. Then suddenly you've got all this ranged poke to really back up what Jax can already do from that frontline positioning.
Yeah. So as we start looking at it a little bit, the biggest time when this is supposed to be a better matchup for Sion is around now, right? When you start building up a lot more of this pressure, when your engage has become really, really strong. And so we're going to be kind of looking at Jenkins, who we've already kind of been praising as one of the most vocal members, one of the biggest shot callers for CLG, if they can actually create space with some of these engages. But TSM, they're playing so far back with every single one of their members except for Hunter. He's kind of like the only nail that can be beaten down.
And very just comfortably going and doing his own thing while the rest of the team is playing far back and just matching Jenkins on that top side. Drop down a deeper ward that can hopefully help TSM in tracking if Kevy or someone else wants to make a play while those splits are happening. We're now under a minute until that next dragon spawns. That kind of awkward time where there's still plenty of time till it comes down, but you do want to start thinking about how you're going to be setting that up, especially with controls and the like. So TSM pushing up the wave. Doxa had just done some of that duty over on the bot side, and Copy, on the other hand, is awaiting the opportunity to make sure that that bot lane will push in their favor, because they already have that turret down and an chance for them to be able to extend that lead. But here's Shelly coming on down, or Shelby, because second one.
I've heard so many names for the Heralds over the years.
I
Good smite.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's more important than what I was going to say.
Oh, no. I mean, we're waiting for his upcoming dragon. CLG, they're a little bit better positioned, but Hunter does have the teleport. He is now on his way back up. They should be able to push Copy out of this flank position, so TSM can walk in. Now remember, 2 dragons already going over to TSM, and the damage really isn't there from CLG just quite yet.
Yeah, a little bit of a dance happening as CLG scuttle in their favor for a bit of time. Go ahead and start poking the dragon, pull out of the pit. TSM, they don't want to break away from one another. And Hanser finally joining the rest of the squad. They have to be wary about Copy. They do have the control, so they know this is here. Flash coming on through, attempting for the stun. Copy flashing over the wall into the pit, drawing as much attention from TSM, though. Look how many members of TSM are chasing Copy, while the rest of CLG take that dragon and break through that stacking.
But TSM, they're still trying to chase after Copy. That's a flash. They get him.
Ooh, they do. So Hunter does get bigger, does get stronger, did use a flash to do so. But CLG breaking into one of the advantages that TSM had been built. Right from the bush, coming through with the unstoppable onslaught and the empowered Q. So much lockdown. Doxa eventually eliminated. Jenkins waiting for that to set up for CLG.
Yeah, a bit of a... I mean, let's be real. Doxa kind of ran it there. He was the only one looking for that play. Nobody else was on board with it. But Hanser does pick up the turret on the other side. And so it's a bit of an even trade, right? A dragon for a turret and a kill each going off to each different side. But Hanser is so fed, right? We already set up Hanser as the best performing member of this team. But it has been a player who has been kind of in and out of the Challengers and Academy scene in the past. And sometimes he's been looking really good. Sometimes we are very excited to see him. And this has been absolutely one of the most successful times that he has actually been in the Academy scene thus far.
Overall, really elevating the level of play, and it is so much fun. I love seeing storied players that have such a rich history, because it is that proof when comparing to players like Dokla, like has been often done, where yes, players can still work, they can still find ways to find new peaks for themselves and really showcase what they can do. And Hanser has been doing exactly that. And right now in this game, just getting to such a strong point. Divine Sunder already completed, as well as the Black Cleaver and more beyond. Yes, Jenkins is going to get tankier and tankier. So in the team fights will be that frontline threat for Meech and Copy to be able to reside behind. But still, TSM having a clear member that they can try and play around.
Yeah. It's also worth comparing this version of Hanser to what we were actually seeing in 2022, right? Because he was on TSM throughout most of that as well, but they didn't have a whole lot of great success. They did pretty decently in the spring proving grounds of 2021, but in 2022, I mean, they took basically a year off. They were playing with like Hyper and Yurson and Cody's son back on TSM Academy in 2021, and so it's been a big gap since we last actually saw a lot of what Hanser has been able to do. And so it's very exciting to see that some players are still grinding, they're still trying to improve over the course of the last year, whereas the rest of TSM, it has been interesting to watch, right? We have been a big proponent of Svenskaren's brain just because of how good he is at reading where a lot of their junglers have been.
Teleport coming in for CLG because Hanser look empowered and all Grandmaster's Might putting in some work. Copy going in for the kill. Can they get something done here? Can't get the knockup from the Q from Jenkins, but eventually finished off. They knew the damage would be good from Copy if given enough time, but CLG punishing on the opposite side of the map, taking down Annie, taking down Dracu, and TSM losing a couple on both sides.
And CLG, I mean, they're firing back. Copy picking up a pretty big shutdown there onto Hanser, and that's a lot of gold. He's currently the only member who has been strong, as he also has a funny number scorer. We'll see if TSM can kind of bounce back and try to prevent any opportunity for CLG to start looking towards the Baron, because both Hanser and Dragu are dead. Unfortunately, though, for CLG, they have too many members on the wrong side of the map.
And CLG says, most of us are here. Let's try and just keep TSM backed off, because all the while Copy, after they got that kill, just wants to push on that bot wave as much as possible to draw the attention of TSM. You can already see Hanser having to make that rotation to answer that wave, and does have teleport at the ready for both of the solo laners of TSM if anything breaks out on other portions of the map. But we still got some time, under a minute before the next dragon. No one necessarily set up since there was so much setup over on the top, so we expect to see some of those wards pushed over into the bottom jungle territory soon enough.
And CLG, I mean, they're still looking for plays at the very least, right? Even with the vision differential being pushed towards the top side, they're using that to attack Hanser. And now they're sending members down towards the bottom side. Meech will be a little bit late coming into this next dragon. And Breezy, good instant flash. I love that respect.
Yeah, it's sometimes that can be the most difficult decision. Do I expel this sum here? Do I not, when there is an objective coming up? And by doing so there, keeping your life is that much more important, because otherwise would give very much a go button to TSM to make something happen while they don't have that sense of engage and lockdown from Breezy. But here, waiting in the bush, Svenskeren and the team, they find Jenkins and they get the stun. And even though he's a tanky boy, still knocked down to half HP, has to use the ultimate just to alleviate some of that pressure. And CLG, it looked like they were trying to decide, do we start out this dragon a little bit here while we kind of are on the surrounding aspect of TSM? Do we not? And in that moment, TSM, because of how much they pushed off that tank, they're the ones to start it up. Teleport coming through from Jenkins after going back to get that healing. See if they end up going for this. Jenkins right here in the pit. Hunter here to match. Gotta keep eyes on the junglers. Kevy going forward onto Svenskeren, who goes into stasis. Copy still looking to sling around. Annie with a stun up whenever need be. But it's CLG coming out on top with 2 kills and makes that 3. Look at them dominating the fight. Zoning off Wild Turtle, who can't even get a kill in return until the final moments onto Meech, who already had that flash expelled. But an overall win for CLG. They get the ace onto TSM, and they don't even want to go for the dragon, baby. They want to go for the Baron.
That was a classic fight coming out from CLG. So much of their success has come around when Jenkins and Copy can find their ways into flank angles and rip apart the battle lines for their opponents. Copy coming in from one side, Jenkins a little bit slow to come in from the other side, but still nonetheless working with Kevy in order to break open the base. Suddenly, you split TSM into 2 different components, and CLG, I mean, a massive win for them. This was slowly looking like a game where Hunter was going to dominate, but one player does not make a team. CLG have multiple that are able to break it apart, and now, yes, TSM should be picking up their 3rd dragon of the game, but this win condition feels almost hollow compared to how much gold CLG are about to get on the map.
The late way in which these dragons even began when TSM got that first means that we're just now getting to soul point, because CLG also breaking into that stacking. So I like their call to go for Baron, since they don't really mind giving up that soul points. And even in that fight around Dragon, you're seeing for a moment, I was thinking, okay, pressure's on you, CLG. How do you want to play around this? How do you want to bring Jenkins back into this fight? Any moment of hesitation can be punished if it's extended too long, but really picking things up and throwing it down onto TSM, and the gold lead for themselves now starting to get a bit more threatening for sure. I definitely, Joshi, have gotten so spoiled by the gold differential that in the LCS, you know, at the bottom.
Yeah,
and I come back and I'm like, man, I got to do math now. Oh, some math onto the HP bar, quickly going down to 0 though for Dragu, and TSM starting to get so punished time and time again with that Baron buff in the enemy's favor. Difficulty standing off against them, and Hunter continuously answered by someone who is quite often Copy nowadays.
Oh yeah, Copy is definitely a player who is going to get chunked out every now and then like this, and so it is going to be a lot of damage coming out from Hanser, but it is definitely a spot where, as long as Copy has the shuriken flip and trades back, he can start looking for potential counter kills, and we are starting to see Copy.
Slammed upon by Hunter, flash over the wall, but said, uh-oh, Svenskeren's there, never mind. All the while, though, Meech and Breezy putting in the work, coming on in with the ultimate from Sion, flashes for flash, and a kick back from Doxa, an attempt to save this, but they manage to pick a kill onto multiple members of CLG. Jenkins now the only one standing, so good fight here from TSM, though CLG did manage to get quite some progress in the mid-take.
Oh yeah, TSM, I mean, that's a lot of gold going right on back, and we get to see the Chiefs logo getting thrown up by Dragu based on their time in Oceania. But the way that Doxa punishes Meech and Breezy there, who overcommit to killing the turret, yes, they get the structure, but they lose the rest of their Baron buff, they lose their lives, and while CLG did pick up a lot of gold, the fact that TSM fires back all at once puts a huge stop to everything that TSM challengers were looking to avoid. And so now TSM, I mean, they're one dragon away from the Cloud Soul. That is so big for Turtle. And while we haven't really seen a whole lot from him this game, Jason Tran still has an opportunity to try and carry the next big fight.
Here at 30 minutes, those timers buying enough time for TSM to really make work and say, okay, we've got something going for us. Still a long time before that next dragon comes through. And CLG, though, I think they're looking at that and saying, okay. Let's make sure that we don't lose sight of ourselves. There are still threats. We still have to worry about Hunter and what he can do. The fact that Wild Turtle playing Zeri is always somebody that you have to worry about once those power spikes come online, no matter what kind of lead that you have. And especially if Dracu ends up getting some kind of sneaky stun. A lot of times what happens, though, is Annie is dying at the start of these fights before really getting a chance for the rest of the team to follow up on any lockdown, and those picks were going well for CLG. But in this case, TSM doing a great job of responding, and the work of Doxa to create that space.
We'll see how well they can actually continue to do that. CLG still feel like they are the ones in control of the map, and now Breezy hunting for Doxa.
Downtown Jenkins, CLG, they've got a lot of people here on the bot side, though, to kill off Doxa. See if CLG managed to get punished at all with TSM's moving on opposite sides of the map, most of them clustered around mid, but there wasn't much for them to be able to collapse and take in the meantime, and it's Hunter kind of leading the charge over on that top side.
Yeah, Hunter will get a little bit of damage down here onto the second top lane turret, but maybe the whole thing, actually, is they're starting to see a potential fight. It gets knocked up. Everybody's here.
Oh, yep, and with the control, there's the anti-stun forward copy taken out of it. TSM looking to make the kill, but Breezy also looking for the charm. Knock up onto multiple members of CLG. Breezy flashing over the wall, and Kevy soon to be low. Flash for flash as Hanser goes for it into the Baron pit is one. CLG separated. Dracu also marked down. A kill onto Kevy. So TSM, they lose Doxa, but they take down two.
And look at this. Both Kevy and Copy will be dead by the time this Cloud Soul actually spawns for TSM. They've done such a huge job at actually making sure that CLG cannot continue to do this. And that's our producer, by the way.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Get that tat. Rakan's face and
Abuse
the
of
name
power.
Breezy. Oh, man.
Anyway, but now TSM, they are going to be going in. They will be picking up this Cloud Soul for themselves. CLG nowhere in sight to try and contest it. And remember, while Wild Turtle has been pretty quiet most of this game, this is a character that's now on 3 items. That's going to be doing a ton of damage. It has a ton of extra movement speed getting picked up both from Dragku and from Wild Turtle himself now that they have the Shirelles completed. Even Jenkins isn't going to be a real tank going up against Wild Turtle Zeri. And so, TSM, they suddenly have all the tools necessary. Hunter did a good enough job holding the game early on. They were able to fight back in the mid game. And now as we start getting towards the later stages of the game, as people are starting to get 3 items, the AD carries are online.
That fight around mid making all the difference, because since CLG had decided to not take that dragon, not the last one that was taken, but the one before, and go for Baron, and they did get some advantages, but then losing out on that Baron window by dying in that fight. And then now that means that TSM were able to string together 2 dragons to get this soul. So it's almost that collapsed effect in which that one fight was showcasing some of the differences in the decisions that they decided to make even a couple minutes before that. And TSM really looking to shore up the gold lead, take full advantage. Oh, but right over the wall, CLG make the play. Just about to bring it back to your point with Wild Turtle being on multiple items now. But when you're killed off the top and CLG are no longer worried about you as a damage threat, they see that as a free opening to start up on this Baron and potentially turn it back if TSM do decide to execute on a fight. So much burn happening for CLG. Baron number 1, they didn't get the full extension of, but Baron number 2, they're looking to make work.
Yeah, and this will buy them a lot of time, right? Because 3 minutes will put them right up to a minute before the Elder Dragon. That'll be a big opportunity for CLG to fight. They need to get a lot of gold now. They will have enough time to recall afterwards, so they want to make sure that they can pick up at least 1 inhibitor off this push. That'll be the success case for this Baron. They need to break open the base of TSM at least a little bit. And so they're starting to push together, potentially looking for Dracu and Doxa, but not able to find them.
Speedily walking away, all that mobility afforded to them. So, I mean, it's, Joshi, what do you...
Oh, that shouldn't be possible. That's so dumb.
Never mind. Let's go back. Stun onto a clone. Spin. Going into stasis once more. Breezy Breezy, a long laser almost finishing off, but Jenkins trying to position so that Breezy can get away. Copy and Kevy over the wall. They lost the jungler on TSM's side, and luckily for TSM, though, there aren't any major objectives up. Because a lot of times when you take that jungler down, that's exactly where you're looking. But CLG still, it just means that they can continue to push across that top lane with Meech and match the rest in the fighting around mid. Yeah, Hanser trying to step up right now. Dragu can only do so much, though.
He's still pushing.
If Kevy is already on the opposite side, knock up and more. Here we go. Dragu has a stun available if CLG wish to continue pursuing this. But Meech, they just bring the fight over to their carry. Multiple charms coming through from the support. Oh my goodness, losing out on the Annie, and TSM, what was looking like such a good momentum run for themselves, now getting a few picks over in the favor of CLG. They are turning it back in this Baron push in full force.
With a minute left, it looks like this Baron is going to be a success for CLG. They've already broken one inhibitor turret. Now they're looking for the potential game.
Jenkins wants to find the opening, doesn't mind taking any of these tower shots, as it is not long for this world with the way they can burn it down, and onto the inhibitor they go. They've got two of them exposed. They don't need that bot one quite right, because they already have these cannon waves coming through. And of course, they're not going to stay in the vicinity because they still need more pushes to come and waiting for those supers to really capitalize upon what they were able to achieve with these inhibitors. But CLG feeling good about their Baron play and beyond.
Remember, they've gotten so much money off of this last fight. They're going to be setting up. They're going to be looking at this upcoming Elder Dragon. Or they also don't even need to flip it. They can start moving towards the bottom side of the map, start looking at the inhibitor. And if you ever feel like you are getting stalled out too effectively by the Zeri, by the Azir, then you can start going back. And because your opponent will not have had time to build vision at all, CLG, they've kind of set the perfect trap right now for the next stage of the game. And CLG, as they start taking more control, I mean, TSM, they have to push out this top wave, they have to push out this mid wave in order to make sure that their base is safe. And TSM, that's a lot of resources that will be devoted to that can no longer fight for vision control around the Elder Dragon.
And a bit over a minute until that Elder Dragon does spawn. So TSM, very uncomfy for them when they cannot move pretty much entirely through that bot side. Yeah, there's one control that's getting taken out right now by Breezy. And Hanser, who got such an early lead, now in these fights, there's only so much you can do when CLG is finding a pick here, finding a pick there right at the start of it, and just following through with a lot of their pushes down the lanes as a result.
Yeah, TSM have to be so careful. They don't have any vision control here. It's been scaring, checking with barrels. Doesn't see anything. We know there are people there.
Yes.
Again.
Especially because that timer is going down, down, down for Elder, and TSM, they can tell CLG saying, we just want to completely control this half of the map. We want to make sure you don't get any chance. Yeah, Hanser over has been escorting that wave up top. Does have teleport to get into the fight if needed.
Yeah. I mean, that pushes the wave really far back, so Copy will need to help it build up for it to be a relevant time threat coming up for TSM. But TSM are already moving towards the Elder Dragon. They know they need to flip for this, and they need to make sure that they don't take too much damage on their way over. Look at the amount of damage Meech is already doing. And this flank, this feels so much like the classic thing that CLG love doing. They love having Jenkins. They love having Copy coming in from different angles. And Jenkins is in a perfect ult position.
Setting up for it, TSM starting to get the damage onto this Elder Dragon. Teleport available for Copy. Turning it around into the pit is where that teleport's coming, while Jenkins ults downtown. Wild Turtle separated by Breezy and Meech. They go for the carry, but that's one stopwatch blown of the four that are in this matchup. Double kill coming in for Copy. So now everyone but Doxa just goes down, down, down for TSM. CLG up and top in the fights, up and top in objective control. They want to make sure it's another ace for them in this one singular game. Teleport going over towards that top side because Joshi, look at the force that they have going into this base.
They're going to be taking this one down. It is going to be CLG improving to 1-0 in their head-to-head record going up against TSM. It was not the cleanest game coming up from CLG, despite a lot of their potential advantages going on earlier on. But hey, a dub is a dub. You need those in order to continue looking for opportunities to play towards the top of the table.
Great late game from CLG. I know TSM, they were building up a bit early, but a lot of their money in a singular place with Haunter, and CLG in the end had the team fights and had the picks really ahead of fights that worked out for them.
Yeah, a long game. It turned into a longer one than I expected. We were well ahead of the other stream, and now they've actually caught back up to us. I know. We almost ended before them. I feel like CLG took their time ending that one. There was a big kind of comeback push from TSM Challengers, but outside of that, yeah, a lot of control from CLG. But we're going to send it to a short break to give the players some time to rest and get ready for game number 2 while we prepare for our halftime segment. Coming up after this.